strangers.
Boss! Hey strangers, let me run you through a scenario. Universal Pictures releases an announcement that shooks the cinematic and the literary nation that after the blockbuster success of Oppenheimer, Nolan's next venture is into Homer's Greek saga, the Odyssey, releasing 18 months after the announcement. And you think to yourself, damn, I better read the books. Maybe I should read the books when I still have time to read them. And then said 18 months pass by and have the books been read? Nope. But it's Pride Month and possibly the best time to read about these Greek heroes. Welcome to this series, Finishing Material Before Movie, working title, Patent Spending, featuring me, my procrastination, a few breakdowns, and of course, the unrelenting progression that is slowly dragging us all to our inevitable deaths. Time! I'll also be giving tons of tips to make this challenge a bit less intimidating. Now, I have tried in the past to read the book before the movie comes out, and I have had successes and a few mostly fails. I read Project Hail Mary before the movie came out. I read that book in the span of like 4 days. That's the fastest I've ever read a book. I failed for Dune Part 1 but did make it in time for Part 2. And by the time I finished reading Frankenstein and Wuthering Heights, the movies were no longer in cinemas. But we ball, right? And I guess I have also read Too Good to Be True before its release as a series. But most importantly, each time I've succeeded, it has been so satisfying and so worth it and gives me such a massive superiority complex while watching the movies that I really want to do it every time now. So as if reading the Odyssey isn't already akin to pushing a boulder the size of Mount Olympus uphill, I naturally have decided to make my life even harder. How? I will not just be reading the Odyssey, but I will be starting with the Song of Achilles, followed by the Iliad, and then ending with the Odyssey. Because I just love myself so much. So because of the order, there might even be a case that I read the Song of Achilles and the Iliad and won't be able to complete the Odyssey before the movie comes out, but the risk is a pool as deep as Felix's voice, but I have decided to take a dive and I am willing to do it. Am I though? Am I? The Song of Achilles. Now if you've seen my last video, I already hauled the book. I had already read like a third of the book and I am happy to announce that I have finished the Song of Achilles. At what cost? But seriously, it was a breeze to read the book. It also filled me with a sadness and ache so profound that I couldn't stop thinking about it for days and days and days. I will literally be having conversations with people and zone out in the middle of it to start thinking about the book. Yeah.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
What is the book about? So the main setting of this book takes place amidst the Trojan War. The Trojan War was a legendary conflict in Greek mythology that waged between the Greeks, aka, I don't want to butcher pronunciation,
Achaeans.
That waged between the Greeks, aka Achaeans, and the city of Troy. And the war begins when Priam, prince of Troy, kidnapped Helen, who is the wife of Menelaus. I hope you're keeping up. When Priam, prince of Troy, kidnaps Helen, who is the wife of Menelaus, who is the king of Sparta, a city capital in ancient Greece. But unlike the Iliad, which focuses solely on the war part of the story, the Song of Achilles actually takes place with Patroclus at its center. And it starts with Patroclus' childhood, his exile from his own land to meeting Achilles, and when they embark on the war together and how the effects of war changes them. It's one of those books where you can kind of predict where it's going, but you want to be wrong like so badly. You spend all the time hoping for a different destiny only for the character's action to lead you right there. So this book is technically a retelling of the Iliad, but it covers, I would say, beyond the Iliad. The Iliad starts in the middle of the war, whereas in the book we follow Patroclus and Achilles' life. It truly is a love story before a tragedy, amidst a tragedy. Also, there were so many moments where Madeline Miller just casually dropped a lyrical bomb. Had she really thought I would not know him? I could recognize him by touch alone, by smell. I would know him blind by the way his breaths came and his feet struck the earth. I would know him in death, at the end of the world. The relationship between Patroclus and Achilles. They weren't very lovey-dovey, so to speak, but each paragraph that they were mentioned, you could just feel their love between the lines. They are always a unit. They are like the two friends in a friend group that always have each other's back and are always together. We often see these characters in adaptations or retellings as like warriors and fighters. Miller really managed to capture how they at their core are just young boys who are in love. Patroclus as our main character is so sincere, undeniably sweet, and just genuinely such a good-hearted soul amidst other selfish brutes. You can see exactly why Achilles, the great warrior, the melodic lyre player, falls for Patroclus. Your heart just warms up to how sweet their love is. Okay, back to the sad stuff. There was a lot. I was shattered about the ending. You don't get it. I was in mourning. I was reading this on the train and I was like, am I about to cry in this express train right now? But I held it. I held it. Just barely though. There's a song, Achilles Come Down by Gang of Youth. That song is ruined for me. Every time I listen to that song, waterfalls. Immediate, like river of tears. Like when I'm listening to that song, don't talk to me because I will cry. That's a threat. All in all, a freaking 5-star. I don't know why I waited so long to read this. I don't know why I robbed myself of the joy of reading about these two beautiful, cute characters. But then again, queer teens in fiction never let me down. So let's talk about the Iliad. I would highly recommend reading the Song of Achilles before the Iliad. And I'll tell you why. Song of Achilles manages to give you all the context and also like a sort of a character lineup and their personalities. So even though sometimes you may not fully understand what a particular line in the Iliad means, so since you like kind of know what part of the story we are in, you can kind of using context clues figure out what the line is trying to mean. I wouldn't even say the language is tough, but the way it's framed is a bit tough. Homer uses a lot of similes. Homer uses a lot of similes and like uses different names for the same person. I wouldn't say it gets difficult, it gets a bit complicated. Let's talk translations. There's numerous translations of the Iliad. I saw a lot of YouTube videos, did a lot of Reddit surfing, scrounged multiple articles. In general, a lot of time was wasted, a lot of procrastination was done, but that's besides the point. And I managed to curate what each translator is trying to give from their version of the story. Okay, and I'm pretty sure this goes for both the Iliad and the Odyssey. Fagle's translation focuses more on matching the poetic styles and matching the similes rather than the literal translation. It is fast-paced and readable, but the wording can get like a bit jarring at times. Next is Emily Wilson, the first female translators to translate the Iliad. A round of applause for her. I think Emily Wilson has freely expressed how her translation is not a literal translation of the original Homer creations. If you don't care about literal translations, her work is one of the most approachable and best to read. Next is Lombardo. He too sometimes deviate from Homer's literal translations and uses a bit of old language. His poetry reads somewhat flat and it does sort of skip lines and skips the poeticness. It's for someone who don't want to experience the Iliad, they just want to get through it, which is of course understandable because it's a big piece of fiction. I get it. Next is Richmond Latimore, who is said to be the most closest Greek to English translations of the Iliad. It follows the melodic rhythms as well. Oh my god, there's a dog. It is extremely faithful to the original work while somehow managing to keep the metrical rhythm. Yes, Homer's work had a metrical rhythm. It's called a hexameter. I think it's called a hexameter. It's said to be the most literal homage to the original, and that's why I picked it up. And there is a great introduction. You get basically a summary of what you're getting into. He describes how he translated. It takes a bit of brain power to figure out, but you feel like this great legend is being told. Like that complicatingness adds to the Greek legend. Latimore gives an extremely elaborate introduction, Iliad is actually presented as like 24 books. They're basically like chapters, but they are called like 24 books that forms the Iliad. Basically a summary of what all the 24 books include. If you think that they are a spoiler, I would suggest you skip them, but I don't, since I knew the story pretty much from the Song of Achilles, so like really laid out for you perfectly. So even if you haven't read the Song of Achilles, the introduction of Richmond Latimore's translation, it gives you a sort of baseline on what is going to happen, so that while reading the Iliad, if you feel lost, you can just figure out what the story is trying to say. I would say I've reached like this much of my goal. Yes, I did some maths. Hopefully you will see me updating. The video is not ending, but I am ending the video. I feel like I should mention the elephant in the room. So you can see the new background. So I'm on vacation, and that is why a different setting. It is permanent. No, it is temporary. Editing me is probably in morning. By the time I'll edit this, I'll no longer be on vacation. I'll let you know how the Iliad goes. I mean, so far I haven't given up, which is, you know, saying a lot. But it is complicated. Like, I have to really like make up my mind to read this. Actually, I have been reading the Incendiary alongside to sort of like not get in a reading slump. So I've been like reading both of those books side by side, which is a great hack. If you're reading like a complex piece of literature, I would suggest reading something that also, like, you know, is a bit easy for you. So we'll see. Knock knock. Who's there? The consequences. Ah yes, the consequences of my own actions. Turns out reading like dense Greek literature from times literally unknown is kind of a disaster recipe for a reading slump. I know this needs ironing. I do not care. It's symbolic, okay? The discombobulated nature of the shirt represents the frazzling state of my mind. God, I love this type of weather. It's so cloudy, but it's just so humid.
I love talking about the weather.
Okay, I'm officially procrastinating. I regret to admit it, but I got into such an immense reading slump. I somehow experienced imposter syndrome while reading this book. My attention span, OMG! I did not know it was this bad. My mind kept drifting away after each line. Has brain rot settled in so bad that I cannot comprehend literature? Has brain rot consumed me so much that I cannot comprehend a single thought? I was on like the verge of a breakdown. Like, I was panicking when I discovered the art of audiobooks, and everything clicked. A tale, a legend like this is meant to be sung out loud to an audience. Actually, I won't be surprised if that's how the story was originally. Ha! I knew it. Homer's works were orally transmitted and orally performed poems. If you're one of those people who has struggled with reading Homer's work, I highly recommend like narrated audiobook. I just found one for free on YouTube. Love YouTube. There's a channel, Chill Books. I'd highly recommend this version because it's read by Mark Cassidy, a human with a beautiful voice, and is not just a soulless, stupid AI voiceover. And another tip that helped me personally to get through this long, almost 500-page book, simultaneously read it with a book that is like easy to get through. It can be good, it can be bad, so that you can basically switch. Along with the Odyssey, I was also reading another book which is it's so bad that it's getting a video of its own. I'll tell you how Homer writes. And once I thought of it that way, the story became like so easy to me. So you know how when you're gossiping with someone, you, or at least I, keep dropping extra lore, which has like no direct effect on the tea, but it does make it interesting. Like, for example, you know X? He's the one who dumped Y just before midterms. Yeah, I heard she's head girl now at that school that won in that competition. Anyway, the reason X dumped Y, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's exactly how Homer writes. Just lore maxing the lore to the max. So let's get into the story of the Iliad. The epic opens with a battle, dropping the reader right into the eye of the hurricane. Immediately at the start, we get a 16-page roll call. What the fuck, Homer? I can name all elements of the periodic table, but I cannot name one name from that 16-page long roll call. Now, if you're a woman in the Homer universe, you basically have 4 choices on how you want to lead your life. You can either be a wife causing a war ending in massacre, literal goddess, a war prize, symptoms include Stockholm syndrome, and a monster. So basically like the stages of menstrual cycle. So Agamemnon, Menelaus' brother and also the commander-in-chief of the war, he captures Chrysis as his war prize. What he doesn't know, actually he was told, he just didn't care enough, was that she was a priestess of the god Apollo. Naturally, it angered Apollo and a plague follows, killing numerous warriors. And Agamemnon is forced to give back Chrysis. Now, being the man-child he is, Agamemnon confiscates Chrysis, who is a war prize of Achilles. Feeling dishonored, Achilles withdraws himself and his troops from the fighting, literally asking the gods to make his own allies lose so they realize how desperately they need him. Patroclus would not approve. So because of this debacle, in the Song of Achilles, we basically get a gap year in which Achilles and his troops do not participate in the war. And that is exactly where like the Iliad kind of fits in, almost like a puzzle. They try resolving the war through like one-on-one duels, but the gods keep interfering. You know how that's like. And then Athena manipulates a Trojan archer to break the truce by firing an arrow at Menelaus, causing once again a full-scale battle between the two sides. I swear it's like so tragically funny. These humans are merely just reality TV for these gods. What's important to note, the Achaeans were only winning so far because of Achilles, and without him the war became like a violent tug of war between the two sides, influenced by meddling gods. I find the politics of the Greek gods like so interesting. They have no morality. Like, they're inhumane. Literally, the Olympian gods do not move in mysterious ways. Their moves are guided by a single thing: spite. Their fights are like WWE, but they are literally unkillable. So it goes so extreme. Bloody Ares lunged at it now with giant lance, and Athena backed away, her powerful hand hefting. A boulder off the plain, black, jagged, a ton of weight. Pallas hurled that boundary stone at Ares, struck his neck, loosed his limbs, and down he crashed and out over 7 acres, sprawled the enormous god and his mane dragged in the dust. Like, chill, dude. Honestly, the gods took the show for me.
She's a legend, and she is the moment. Now, come on now.
After much unfair bloodshed, Zeus finally prohibits the gods from interfering and begins fulfilling his promise he made to Achilles. He tips the scales of victory in Troy's favor, and the Trojans violently pushes the Greeks back. Honestly speaking, there's a bit of a lull here. You can only write so differently about various men stabbing each other with spears and arrows, mostly in the butt and the nipple. The Greeks never beating the gay allegations. Love that for them. Imagine getting killed by a dart to the nipple. Ouch! So without Achilles and also with Zeus working against them, the Greeks find themselves on the brink of disaster, making a panicked Agamemnon finally realize his mistake. He sends Odysseus, Ajax, and Phoenix to Achilles, offering apologies and many gifts if he were to return to fight. But Achilles flatly refuses. He refuses to listen even to Patroclus. Look what war did to him. The battle resumes and the Greeks are forced to retreat as Agamemnon, Diomedes, and Odysseus all suffer injuries. The Trojans manage to infiltrate the Greek camp, bringing them up to the hulls of their ships with blazing torches. This is important because Troy was like an island, and without the ship there was no means of returning to home for these warriors. A weeping Patroclus begs Achilles to do something. Achilles, calm down, won't you get up off the roof? Achilles still refuses to fight but allows Patroclus to wear his armor to scare the Trojans away. The plan works, but at what cost? The plan works, but Patroclus gets carried away in the heat of the war, leading to his fateful and tragic death at the hands of Hector. This part of the story cut so deeply, even 3,000 years after its writing. What makes the death so tragic, in my opinion, is that knowing that his death could have been prevented by his loved one, no less. The news of the battlefield reaches to Achilles. His pride is instantly replaced by earth-shattering grief. Achilles, now blind with rage, running on pure vengeance, slaughters the Trojan line. There's this description that chills me to the bone, is that of how he clogs a river with the amount of dead bodies he dumps in it. That's a visual. What I find most surprising about the Iliad is the sheer amount of brain splattering, gut spilling, visceral action scenes. It's so anatomically precise and almost voyeuristically gory. Maybe the reason it was so popular with the Romans at the time. What follows is I would say a strangely anticlimactic duel between Hector and Achilles. I mean, there was no competition. Finally, Priam enters Achilles' tent to ask for his son's body, leading to a quite tearful end of a story where two enemies recognize their shared grief and the inevitable tragedy of the war, no matter who wins it. Honestly, I had so much fun while reading. Like, I just love reading like the horrors, the genuine horrors of war, instead of making it a plot point to glamorize it. But just because the war is over doesn't mean their sufferings end, which is how we go to the Odyssey. We get dual perspectives and the timeline jumps more than a frog on heroin. The story begins by focusing on Odysseus' son, Telemachus, setting the stage and showing what is at stake for Odysseus even before we meet the hero. Odysseus went to war, which ranged for 20 years, and even after that he was missing for 10 years, and because of that, suitors for Penelope, Odysseus' wife, overrun his palace trying to raise up Penelope. The goddess Athena intervenes and urges Telemachus to take some initiative. Telemachus finally steps up, saving the Avengers' weapons from falling into the wrong hands. Oh wait, wrong homecoming. His journey starts at Pylos, home of King Nestor. Next, Telemachus meets King Menelaus and his wife Helen. Their marriage has to be so awkward. You think seeing your ex at work is embarrassing? Check your privilege. Here he learns that Odysseus is still alive. The perspective shifts to Odysseus, trapped by the nymph Calypso. Basically, yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got in this situation. The gods order his relief, but Poseidon wrecks his raft. What? Poseidon wrecks his raft? Because apparently Odysseus killed his son? But that's an exposition for later in the story. Odysseus is left stranded only to be discovered by Nausicaa, princess of Phaeacians. Oh, fun fact, the king of Phaeacia shares ancestry with his wife. He's her uncle. Just sprinkling in fun side notes. So Odysseus recounts his crew's departure from Troy. After departing for some reason, they decide to raid the Cyclones tribe just for shits and giggles. Why not? An adventure-packed journey follows, starring Cyclops, sorceresses who he has sex with, a literal trip to hell where Achilles and Agamemnon makes a cameo. Reunion! Yay! I wish I were joking. Deadly sirens, sea monsters, a multi-headed creature, and of course, your everyday cannibalistic giants. I say this as a compliment, but tell me why this whole part of the adventure, tell me why it reads like the Hangover plot. Like, it sounds like a boys' night out gone wrong. Am I the only one? Did these things even happen? Is Odysseus just messing with the host at this point? It's so like unreliable narrator core. The incest royals, feeling pity for him, takes him back to Ithaca. Athena disguises him as a beggar so he can sort of scout the situation of the palace. Meanwhile, on his trip back to Ithaca, Telemachus just narrowly avoids a deadly ambush set by the suitors who wants him killed, and he's saved only thanks to Athena.
Give all you've got under the moonlight. It's yours for the
Telemachus, the OG Nepo kid, before he reveals himself to his son, for some reason Athena gives Odysseus like a makeover. So Telemachus' initial reaction is just like, Dad, that can't be you. You're too hot. The two share an emotional reunion after years of son living inside the Soul Stone after being disintegrated by a purple ball sack. Fuck, wrong movie again. Tom Holland is the real Thanos, collecting father figures like Infinity Stones. Odysseus infiltrates his own home, still under the disguise of a beggar, performing like Mission Impossible level espionage to reclaim what's his and also to check on Penelope. The audacity of Odyssey. The only reason Penelope isn't standing with a welcome back cheetah board is because he's still in a disguise. Telemachus and Odysseus makes a revenge plan to kill everybody. Just classic father-son bonding moment. At this point, Odysseus has been home without revealing himself, performing like elaborate toxic boyfriend level loyalty test for like 25% of this book. Penelope, unaware of Odysseus' presence, brings out his bow and proposes like a challenge that whoever is able to bend his bow will get her hand in marriage. And you'd never guess who won. The long-awaited confrontation finally explodes as Odysseus sheds his beggar's rag like Superman, followed by a suitor massacre straight out of the Saw movie franchise. The book ends with a reunion between Odysseus and his rapidly aging father, and they all live happily ever after. Yay! I love this book for obvious reasons. I'm a simple gal. I like adventures, I like journeys, I like quests. And that's what I hope the movie can capture. The fun and ridiculousness of this tale balanced equally with violence and gore that chills you to the bone. I had so much fun reading these literatures. I mean, technically listening, but I mean, still reading. Consuming the story, okay? By the way, this headband, I crocheted it while listening to the audiobook. And also this flower, focus. So, idea. So that's like become one of my favorite hobbies now, crocheting while listening to an audiobook. Just, I'm doing two of my hobbies at once, gaining double the dopamine. The tale is like so absurd with like a morbid sense of humor to it. Maybe a controversial take, but I love the open mistrust of characters towards the opposite sex. Men believe women to be like just pure whores, and the woman would rather turn the men into pigs than having to actually deal with them. I was so fascinated as the gods like seriously mess with the character's mind and then come to their aid to become like a savior. Truly, just puppets for their entertainment. It's taken me like around 3 months to read these two stories, which is, I mean, normal for me. I'm a rather slow reader. I've always been a fan of Percy Jackson and like that era. So it's been such a delightful experience to delve into this era of the Greek mythology. I don't know what to do now. I'm so excited for the movie. I want to know your thoughts. Let me know. Have you read this? Will you read this?
When will you wear wigs?
Will you watch the movie? This is just whatever you feel like. Let me know. Consider subscribing if you like the kind of chaotic energy we've created in the studio today. Bye. Signing off.